Good afternoon, everybody. 4 minutes past 12 noon. It's Jim White and Simon Jordan, and it's one of the best pundits in the business, Martin Keown, Arsenal Invincible Martin Keown, live with us on talkSPORT. We're into the final hour. Thereafter, a big weekend of football, big weekend of sport, and of course, it's a Manchester derby. Can United possibly beat City? Of course they can, say Manchester United fans. We shall see what happens when the two of them lock horns yet again this coming weekend. Martin, the reason I was saying pundit and punditry. Of course, everyone's got their favourites these days. Is it Martin Keown? Is it Gary Neville? Is it Roy Keane? Is it Michael Richards? Is it Jamie Carragher? Pundits? Is it Danny Murphy? And if it is, do you give them the nod? Do you give them the vote because they're objective, because of their objectivity, because of their impartiality? On what do you base it? Martin and I locked horns. I don't know if you remember this, Martin, back in 2022, when you famously included no Tottenham players in your North London combined 11, suggesting that you were standing up for Arsenal, going into full cry, then going into White Hart Lane. And in fact, we can remember and we can hear what you said at the time. Do you regret, Mr. Keown, saying this week that you wouldn't take any Spurs players in your Arsenal side?
That was me standing up for an Arsenal team, going into full cry in a battle in White Hart Lane. Let's get it on, and I'm backing my players. I don't want players to see.
So you were standing up for Arsenal.
Of course, I was standing up.
But you didn't really mean it.
I think everybody knows the quality of Son and Kane and Kulusevski, who's now come in. He's come from Juventus.
So would you have those in your Arsenal side then?
I think I'd like. No, I don't think of all three. I wouldn't have all three of them.
But would you have any of them?
I'd have two of them. Yes.
So why would you write an article saying you'd have none of them?
Because I'm going into an article.
Well, that's not an article. That's an advertorial. What you're doing is you're doing bias. We've got people that listen to.
I'm standing up for my. This is the biggest game of in living memory between these two teams.
I would have thought your job was to write an educated article.
Sometimes we can be mischievous. Which Jim's not the only one who can be mischievous and a little bit sensational.
Don't turn it back at me. What you said in the Daily Mail then, you didn't really mean.
You've gone into the archives to pick that out.
We remember that well. Simon was suggesting to you there that what you were offering wasn't an honest appraisal. In other words, you were wearing your Arsenal-tinted spectacles. The reason I asked Martin is that Danny Murphy this week said, objectivity, when you're a pundit, on radio or TV, it's a tough thing to achieve. This was Danny.
I think at times when you do our job, there is inevitably a little bit of that because of friendships, because of likes, dislikes, certain types of football, certain players, attitudes, behaviours. It's human nature to like some players and managers and teams better than others. If anything, I think it can go the other way. I think you can actually do bad punditry because you try not to be that and you go the other way.
So when you're trying not to be objective, that's when you run the risk of doing bad punditry. I don't know. Martin, is it impossible to be impartial?
Probably. But I think you can work hard, to be impartial. I mean, I think I would defy any Spurs fan that comes on right now and says that I've been critical of Spurs, really ever been critical of Spurs. I always try and look on the bright side for me. Certainly their manager, and now he just picked up an award, by the way, last night, didn't he? I'm not quite certain about that. He's ready to receive awards, but nonetheless, he's changed. It's transformational at Spurs right now.
Yeah.
I don't look at Manchester United with any kind of hatred or, I think we can go overboard, certainly with Arsenal and with Manchester United.
You don't hate United?
No, I don't. I think hatred is a big word.
Okay.
I think we become a little bit too emotional, don't we, when we use that word. They seem very protective. So it's a club. It's obviously an area that the Man United fans don't want me to go into. You're kind of not worthy. You're not worthy to talk about our club.
This is based upon the criticism that Jamie Carragher had of some of the tactics that were being deployed by Man United, and the argument has spiralled on about objectivity when you have a favourite team in the conversation. And Danny was talking about the difficulty of it. Now, obviously, your newspaper article was the most craven example of bias and lack of objectivity, and a fanzine.
Well, no, that was about picking a consummate 11, which I'm never really a big fan of. In fact, I didn't want to do it, so I just picked an Arsenal team going into the battle. So that was the thing, which is what we do when we don't want to answer a question. We say what we actually want to.
But when you look back in that wasn't the wisest thing to do. Would you concede that now, Martin?
I'm not. That's 2 years ago. Let's look at what.
North London combined.
Let's look at the Carragher situation with Ten Hag. Ten Hag, I just feel, is it? I don't know. Is there a change taking place at Manchester United? Are they considering themselves to be too nice? And then now suddenly they're like, okay, let's go after some of the journalists that say things. I often wonder, is Sir Alex Ferguson now becoming more prominent? What would Sir Alex Ferguson done in a press conference? Half of these guys wouldn't have been allowed in, and by now he probably would have shown his teeth. It's a bit late for Ten Hag to do that. I don't think he's got that kind of style of management. If we look at this week, just this week, he's been talking about, Anthony is an outstanding talent. I mean, he's had 1 goal, 1 assist. He's unstoppable. So when they say things like that, then I can imagine, I can see why Carragher gets annoyed, and then and wants to throw, statistics at them and wants to throw tactics at them. And I don't think you should be really worrying about what other people are going to think or say to you. Certainly not the managers. We by and large, we've got some fantastic managers in the Premier League. But you've got to, hand on heart, Jim. When you were a player, you got on the ball, you made something happen, and you passed it to a colleague when you didn't have anything on. With the microphone, it's no different. You now get on the microphone, you say something, you've got nothing to say, you pass the microphone on to Simon. And that's how it is. Make something happen when you're on the pitch, make something happen in the studio. To give us some content that we're going to go away thinking, okay, that makes sense. I understand that. That's a good opinion, that's a bad opinion, but it's an opinion nonetheless.
But is your content impartial?
I try very hard to be impartial, yes, 100%.
You sure? If you were asked to pick a North London combined 11, say for this weekend, would you include a Tottenham player in it?
Well, I might look at. I'd say, look, pass that article on to someone else. I don't want to do consummate 11s. I'll talk about the strengths and the virtues of the Spurs team, and I think it actually would make a very good game, that one. Both teams are playing a really attacking football. I think Spurs right now are just a little bit too open, and Arsenal will probably beat them because they don't pay enough attention.
But do you think there's anything in the observation and the allegation that's being made that there's a lack of objectivity? Jamie gets very excitable in Liverpool games.
We shouldn't be cheerleaders for our teams.
Yeah,
I don't like the cheerleader.
Do you think the accusation is fair?
I think that the Sky setups has put it up there to do that. When you've got representatives, big name representatives from various clubs, and they become cheerleaders, I think they've got to work very hard.
But isn't that a choice? Keane doesn't do that, does he?
No, I think Roy is very. I think Roy does very well. That's right. But Gary, of course, and Jamie, they're both in the commentary box. I imagine they will be at the weekend. What I hope doesn't happen this week. It doesn't become the story about Manchester United if City were to win this one by a cricket score, because it's not about Manchester United. It's about the beauty of Man City. We're not really. I think they suffer a little bit, City, to be honest.
Yeah, but that's another matter.
Without the credit.
When you co-commentate,
we're talking about whether former players influence what we're listening to, and I think that's an example.
Are you 100% impartial
when Arsenal are playing?
Yeah.
I can't say hand on heart I would be, no. Which is why I don't think really I should be in the commentary box when we're doing an Arsenal game when they're playing against Spurs or they're playing against Man United. I don't think we should be listening to that, because it becomes a little bit about the commentators and the co-commentators, and it certainly isn't about them. It's about what's on the pitch.
Do you think we should look at punditry in a different way?
That's my call.
This weekend, Manchester
I'm not the
City
director
against
of
Manchester
Sky
United.
TV, but they have their own way of wanting to do it, don't they?
In it. Man City against Man United. Do you think the pundits should be one ex-City, one ex-United, alongside the host David Jones? Do you think there should be one of each?
What's wrong with that?
Or have two people who have had nothing ever to do with either Manchester club?
No, I think it's okay in the studio. I think it's really good to see people in the studio. It's just one step removed, and they have time to think about what they're saying. It's the commentary where I'm opposed to it.
Yeah.
See, I don't even with Neville and Carragher, I don't listen to their commentary and become offended that they are invested, because it's priced in that they both played for these football clubs. As long as their commentary has sense attached to it and isn't serving out agendas, I get tired of listening to Neville. I think
they're very good, but not in those games when it's teams where the teams that they play for themselves. I don't think it's a great listen, because Gary can sulk and goes really quiet for a period, when actually no, we want to hear some content. We want to hear something about his team. We don't have a representation from Man City in the commentary box.
The accusation is being made because Jamie's being critical. The real genesis of this accusation is starting.
He's been honest, isn't he?
Well, let me tell you what the real genesis of it, in my perception, is that Ten Hag is pushing back and suggesting he's got a Liverpool bias and applying it over Man United's performances. Right. And the statistics don't bear that out in terms of, if Jamie Carragher doesn't have a point in what he's saying,
So you think he doesn't have a point in his statistics?
I think that what Jamie Carragher, the observation about who was pressing and who didn't do their jobs and what they were being told by the coach was a fair observation. It had nothing to do with the fact he was a former Liverpool player. I think that's a very tenuous leap for Ten Hag to make. When he gets excitable and overcooks the pudding about Liverpool's performances, I get it. But when he's talking about Man United's job in a completely different game when they're not playing against Liverpool, I think it's a ridiculous observation. And what it is it's a typical tactic of those that perceive they're in a position of influence and power. Don't play the man. So play the game, play the man. I'm going to make this about Carragher rather than his observation. Is his observation crap? Because if his observation is crap, demolish it. If it isn't, what's it got to do with the fact that he used to play for Liverpool once?
Yeah, but if we look at Manchester United, if I may talk about them, you know, they played the other night, so it's very clear. Amrabat comes into midfield as the inverted fullback. The two central defenders, they go the width for the pitch, width for the penalty box, and then McTominay's allowed to go.
What's this got to do with objective punditry?
No, I'm saying that this is how they do it. But when we watch them, we're not really sure what they're doing when they go to press. If you look at Man City, there's so many assists in their team. So it's off the cuff. Manchester United is off the cuff. When we see Anthony on how many crosses are we getting? So what I'm saying is, I think it's fair game to have a look at Ten Hag and say, okay, tactically we're not really quite certain of what you're trying to achieve. I can see the picture emerging, what you're doing with the ball, but without the ball, I don't think it's overly fantastic.
If Spurs play Arsenal and you were commentating, would you be objective, balanced and fair?
I would, yes. In a professional duty, I would endeavour to do that, but I don't think that's happening at the moment.
So you don't think on the whole that there's a lot of objectivity in some of the you don't?
No, I don't. I think it's very subjective reaction every time because it's a naturally and they're becoming.
By you and others.
No, I'm not getting the opportunity to do the games at high level, am I? In co-composition, I'm saying that the current guys are acting like cheerleaders, and I think this weekend would be nice to hear a little bit of professionalism.
Oh, right, tooting his own horn again.
Okay.
No, not at all. Not at all. I'm not. I'm just saying what I'm having to listen.
So you'd be objective. You wouldn't fall into the same trap of subjectivity, even though you write an article.
I try
which
my
is
best,
completely
but you're bringing
subjective.
it back to an article. And I'm bringing it back to a co-com
because you try to defend it.
It's a live. We're going live here, and I think you've got to give
So
credit. Give credit where it's due.
So you'd be worse
if City win this by a cricket score. We might hear Gary say some nice things about Man City.
So
this
in the
weekend.
moment you revert to your default setting. You had a conscious decision to be completely subjective in writing an article. Your crime is even greater.
Stop bringing it back to that.
Can't help it.
Do you not do this in some of your articles? Being a bit mischievous?
I'm not at all. I'm awful to everybody in equal measure.
Arsenal Invincible.
He's like a firework in here, isn't he?
With us at this lunchtime on the subject of objectivity from the pundits. We're coming up to 12:20.
Jim White and Simon Jordan. Monday to Friday mornings from 10 on AM, on DAB, via the talkSPORT app and on your smart speaker. talkSPORT.